Hello everybody and welcome back into the Hobbit Soul in the Ground, or in Italian Il Poco dell'Hobbit. We come here again after a long time to make videos about a new fan-made expansions designed and let's say invented by Marc M of the international Discord server for the War of the Ring game. And we also have the pleasure to have Mark today to explain us this, in my opinion, very wonderful expansion. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hello, Jacopo. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem, no problem. Actually, uh, it's kind of funny because we were talking this about recording like many months ago. I thought that I was over with doing like in exploring the different setups and expansions for the War of the Ring after the video about leaders with abilities. I thought I saw everything because I was referencing, I mean, everything that I was mainly interested to that was available on BGG. And
That also
then,
inspired me, by the way. Those your
ah,
videos inspired me. Yes, absolutely. They were very
okay.
good.
Well, that's a pleasure to hear that because that's the main reason for them, like to sparkle creativity and discussion about these different setups. And then Mark approached
Yeah.
me and he told me, like I have something that I've been working on. It's a little thing called Treasures of Middle-earth. Would you like to have a look at it? I looked at it and I loved it, and I loved it so much that then like we proceeded with Mark to do some play testing games on TTS. But this is something also that we can mention after. And yeah, I don't know if you feel like it, Mark, we can start over the discussion of your expansion.
Let's
Uh,
go.
yeah, so maybe talking about the first inspirations about it.
Yeah, so you can see on the screen there the R1 card for an old card game called Middle-earth: The Wizards. So if we got some oldies like myself, you guys will be aware of this game and you're Lord of the Rings fans. This was the first CCG by Iron Crown Enterprises for, and CCG being a collectible card game for Lord of the Rings, and it was kind of a hit in the 90s. And it had this aspect of characters moving around the map of Middle Earth, exploring ruins and getting treasure. And back in that game, they were accumulating points. So that was something I thought, wouldn't that be cool if we could have like a minor aspect of that in War of the Ring? Because I feel like we don't see enough characters moving around the board in War of the Ring. So I thought, is there some way we can get that flavor from the old card game and get that more characters moving on the board, which most people agree are the most fun games they've had in War of the Ring, is when the characters are out and about and getting involved in the battles and doing all sorts of cool hero things. So the other inspiration was the old MERP role playing game, which is Middle Earth role playing, which had a certain way of looking. They went beyond the books and I wouldn't say invented monsters, but they put more detail into monsters like werewolves and vampires, and they just added flesh to the world of Middle Earth.
Mhm.
So that I would call that a minor inspiration. I would say the Middle Earth CCG was probably a greater inspiration. Um, then, speaking as someone who plays War of the Ring and have a few hundred games under my belt, I found that too many games in base game were fairly predictable. You absolutely still have exciting games where stuff goes off script, but I found like 8 out of 10 games or something were going kind of the same way with the Strider sprint against the military sprint of the Shadow. So I thought I might find a way to do a small bolt-on expansion for base game that would perhaps even the odds to 50-50 for the free peoples and do the other goals I mentioned as well at the same time and not add too much complexity and certainly not break the balance of the game. So those were kind of all the elements that were in my head when I threw this Treasures of Middle Earth together.
Yeah, and as we can see, as you mentioned, like we have pretty much all the elements that then you thought about introducing this fan-made expansion. So like we have characters, as we will see now in a moment, we have new characters in this expansion, but we also kind of these some particular locations that are considered to be ruins, like a place to be
Exactly.
explored, looted, or where you could encounter something dangerous. And then
Exactly.
finally,
Yeah. Yeah.
we have the loot, the treasures, which is the name of the expansion. So yeah, all of these
Yeah, those are
ideas.
sort of the three aspects there, yeah, where you look at characters, locations, and items.
Cool. So going back to your expansion. Um, So reading your document, we see like you explain all the things that you have exposed to us so far, like your main inspiration, the idea of balancing, and everything else. And you start to talk about like the main components, which, by the way, like it's very for the people who are scared about introducing new elements for the world of the ring board base game because of adding complexity and stuff. Really, don't be in this case because I would say that in terms of new elements and like this expansion is even lighter than many other one compared, for example, also official and unofficial. I can think, for example, Lords of Middle Earth. This one is even lighter. So
Oh yeah.
whoever plays Lords have no fear. You can totally approach this one, or even like in some ways also compared to other lighter um, fan-made expansion like Leaders with Abilities. Like this is very contained. Actually, like uh, the whole
Mhm.
rule book is contained within one page, and then like you just need the components. But without further ado, okay, so the first new component that we see is this hero die. Maybe we can show
Correct.
also on this other document, we can show the faces of this hero die. There you go. And then
There
in a
you go.
moment we're going to explain also these other characters. But so we have a hero die whose six faces are the one represented here in this kind of pinky box. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
And the
So
idea here is
yeah,
the idea was to have
I'll let you explain this one. So
right, right. The idea is to give a die to the free peoples, not for free. You have to muster Elladan and Elrohir, who we'll talk about in a second. And then you get this die, but it is a flawed die, much like the Keeper's dice are flawed in Lords of Middle-earth. Yeah, Middle-earth, that's right.
yeah,
Um, and the idea was to favor the free peoples, but also have a kind of negative impact as well. So you don't quite know what you're going to get. So looking at the die there with the pink marble background, the first result to the top left is a ruins result, and that's for exploring ruins. And the result in the bottom right, which shows Legolas in profile, is actually a move companions or characters on the map. Only one though. So normally with the character result in base game, you can move all your characters that are on the map or separate. Well, with this Legolas result, you're only moving one character, and that character must already be on the map. So the ruins and the Legolas results are free people results, and they're good for the free people player. The vampiric spirit symbol there in the upper right, um, that symbol is a denizen symbol, and that is one that favors the shadow player. So that's the negative 2 out of 6 result that goes in the favor of the shadow. And that is used to essentially make the ruins more dangerous in a way that we can discuss further
Yeah.
Those are your 6 faces of the hero die, and the hero die is brought into play when Elladan and Elrohir are brought into play.
So maybe we
And
should
what else?
we can talk about Elladan Elrohir immediately, maybe.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, eh?
There you go.
Um, yeah, so the design of Elladan and Elrohir, the idea, first of all, thematically, right? They're not in the game, and they I always thought they were really cool. The other thing about it is that in the chapter in the Council of Elrond, it's actually mentioned that Elladan and Elrohir had returned from some vital mission, and it was never detailed. It was never said what it was, and you don't know what they were up to from that point forward after the council. So I thought it was a neat thematic space to get involved with, to get them, out doing these ruins and explorations and all that, adventures, if you will. So the first thing about it is I wanted to not make 2 character cards, so I made Elladan and Elrohir 1 card. They appear in Rivendell, and all you need to do is use a muster action. So I didn't want the hero die to be extremely expensive for the free people, and it seemed to me that a muster on turn 1 in base game is not usually, it's not terrible. It's useful, but it's not your best result, so it's not a huge sacrifice. When you muster Elladan Elrohir, they appear in Rivendell, and then, as normal, you acquire the hero die, and we'll be rolling it as of turn 2, or sorry, the next turn. So um, they move faster, much like Gandalf, because they have elven steeds. And the other thing about them is if you eliminate Elladan Elrohir while there's an angry brother basically survives. So they come back, there's a token you put on the character, and they come back at a level -1.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
I
you
won't go
may
too deep
find that
into it.
one of the two brothers died, but the other one is still there.
Correct. So I have a token, which is not pictured here, which is part of the expansion, which, by the way, is a set of objects in Tabletop Simulator, which I can give the link to. It's a published work in the workshop for Tabletop Simulator, so it's
Yeah, we
available
can
to
put
everyone.
the link of it in the description of this video, together with any other documents that you open to share with the public. So like anybody can access to it if you're okay with it.
Perfect.
Um, Another thing to mention is that these Elladan Elrohir, whenever they are equipped, which we're going to see what it means in a moment, with a treasure
Right.
card, they become at that point actually companions, but they're not companions beforehand. They only become it once they are equipped with certain treasures, which we're going to see what that means.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah, I had to specify that in the rule page because there's a gray area in the rules I couldn't find specifically because it refers to companions when you're moving. Free people's moving people on the map. It should refer to them as characters, in my opinion, because you have certain things like Treebeard that can move around with a character result, but they're not technically companions. So anyways, in this rule sheet, I
yeah,
spelled it out that you are a character. You can move with a C die just like a companion could, but you are not a companion. So anything that specifically says companions in cards or whatever can't be procced by Elladan and Elrohir until, as you said, they acquire a treasure, which we haven't discussed yet.
yeah. So, okay, in a scenario where, okay, turn one, we roll a master result, we bring in Elladan Elrohir, and we get an hero die. So two main scenarios they open to us after this happens. In subsequent turns, we can start to move Elladan Elrohir on the map and try to explore ruins. Uh, so maybe we
Yeah.
can show a little bit how that works on this document here. There you go. We have some rules. We have a reference cards on how like all of this works.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're lucky enough as free people on the first turn you have the hero die, which would be turn 2 earliest, you would immediately roll like a move hero result or a hybrid, and then
Mhm.
get Elladan and Elrohir moving. They're levels 3, and we have not discussed the ruins. So you can see at the top on the left of the reference card here where it says place ruins tokens in specific areas. So Holland, Evenden, Arnor, Goblin's Gate, Southern Mirkwood, and Withered Heath. And each one of those tokens can be flipped to what I call the monster side. And
Hmm.
that has a power which the shadow can use. But the ruins are located in those areas, and that is where, if you want to delve for treasure and adventure, that is where your character is going to have to go. And I just want to be clear, it doesn't have to be Elladan and Elrohir. It's just that they are built, that character is built for purpose to do this, but it could be anybody. You could send a hobbit. And if you go to the left of that reference card, you'll see that is how you delve ruins. And it's simple as rolling a combat die and seeing what happens based on the level of the character and whether there's armies of specific either shadow or free people in the region.
Yeah, indeed. So the presence of these armies of free people or shadow army can affect the role on the delving into the ruins. And according to the results, you might actually eliminate the companion that is exploring the ruins because it's a dangerous activity.
Yeah,
going
exactly.
going to delve into ruins that don't want to be delved. Or if you manage to succeed in your mission, to either randomly on a result of 4 or 5 modified by uh, necessary modifiers explained above, either randomly get a treasure equipment card, let's say, or to get exactly what you want on a result of on a result of a 6, but it must be a modified 6 if I'm correct, isn't it?
Six or more modified will do the trick.
Yeah. But it's like if like I have a -1 on my roll and I roll a 6, it's still considered to be a 5. Like I don't get like it needs to be
Correct.
modified 6 and not unmodified.
Right.
So
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And you pick whatever treasure you want. Do you think it could be a good time now to give a look to our treasures to see what we're talking about?
Sure.
What? Okay.
They're the
So
kind of the center of the entire. We'll talk about the monsters after, which are what the shadow player gets, but the treasures are really the center of the entire expansion in terms of definitely what the free people's going for. I wanted them to be powerful, meaningful. They're not easy to get. And once you have one, you equip it to a character. Again, it could be Elladan and Elrohir, or it could be Legolas. If you separated Legolas, it could be just about anyone. Um, and the equipping is a new rule of this expansion. It's very simple. And the character that has a treasure is considered equipped, and a character can only equip one treasure at a time. If that one character gets a second one, then they'll have to pick one to discard. The treasure deck, I call it, has the current 4 treasure cards randomly mixed in. Just to be very clear, this expansion does not touch the free people or shadow decks at all. There are no extra character cards, no extra strategy cards for either faction. And the treasure deck is a completely separate deck that is not manipulated in any way by our existing card manipulation or drawing capabilities. So you don't draw from the treasure deck due to any other factor than delving ruins and getting that roll as we just showed, and being lucky enough to have found a treasure. And if you get a 6 above, you get to pick out of that treasure deck, pick what you want. Otherwise, you're taking a random pick out of a deck of 4. And here are the first 2 examples: the blade and mail of Gondolin and the helm and axe of Belegost. So I really wanted to have this dripping with theme. So these are ancient treasures from Beleriand that
yeah,
have resurfaced.
first stage,
Yes,
let's say treasure, so like antiquities in some sense.
correct. So you would take this card and equip it under, let's say, Legolas, and they would then, you'll see how I put border writing in the borders. You would then kind of put that slightly askew to Legolas's card with that underneath, and you can kind of see the powers at a glance type of thing. Um, yeah, if you want to go over each card, Jacopo, I'll let you do that.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So, the very nice thing that I noticed in playtesting the expansion with Mark is that the first time I was able, the first time that I delved into Ruin, I rolled a natural six. There were no modifiers, so like I could pick whatever
Mm.
treasure that I wanted to. It would have been easier for me if it was like I had to pick it randomly because once I had all these options in front of me, I was like, now what do I pick? Because all of these options are so cool. And you're going to understand in a moment why do I mean it. So, for example, Blade and Mail of Gondolin has two main effects. The first one is a Faithful Strike, which is pretty much similar to the one that we have in the combat card of Bilbo's Song for the base game. So if this card is in a battle, you may discard this card, so the equipment, before rolling combat dice to use one hit during your leader reroll to eliminate a Nazgul, or instead use two hits to eliminate a minion if in the battle. So pretty much the same effect, but you can get it uh like you can choose to get it some way, or if you're lucky enough, like you have more chances of finding it in the from the treasure deck, let's say. And the
Mm.
second effect, Craft of the Noldor, lost since the Elder Days. If this character would be eliminated, discard this card instead. This character remains in play in the same region, which I think like is such a cool effect. And
Mhm.
of course, like keeping a character into play is like by default, like even if it's like eliminated in a battle, whatever, or even not within a battle, like by an effect of shadow player, it's like such a powerful tool to have at the end. But they also like there are so many nice synergies with other combat cards effect for the free people player. For example, I think about heroic death. If you play this one in conjunction with heroic death, you can still absorb whatever the level of the character and still bring it back thanks to the blade
Right.
and mail of Gondolin. So it's a very nice synergy there.
Yeah.
Uh, Moving on, we have the Helm and X of Belegost. Very nice reference
Mm.
to the Battle of Wrath, I think, from the first stage, where like dwarves
Yep.
and dragons were fighting each other. Um,
Yep.
So
Correct.
first effect, the X of the No Dream Lord. If this character is in a battle where a shadow army is not under siege and you did not use a combat card, during the first round, each unmodified roll of 6 on your combat roll and leader reroll inflicts one additional hit on the shadow army. Very nice effect. It reminds a little bit of Fear of their Masters. I think also pretty thematic.
Yep.
Um, Second effect, an ancient mask hideous to look upon, which I feel like also like I need to congratulate you on like on your wording of this character. Like it represents so thematically of all these Tolkienian lore. Like it makes so sense to people who have read not only like the Lord of the Rings, but other material from the professor, like Silmarillion or like the Unfinished Tales and all of that. It's very nice what you did there. But
Thank you.
anyway, with
Appreciate
this
that.
effect that we have, if this character is in the battle, the shadow player cannot reroll a modified combat dice results of one. So, like, still a pretty valuable card reminds a little bit of confusion, even though it's like in
Mm.
the part where you make a hit because of once, but like still a very valuable card. And for the people who think that these cards may be overpowered in some sense, like yes, they are. Like they're supposed to be strong, but I can
Mm.
assure you that uh, going to a ruin, explore the ruin, magically getting the item that you want, or like being lucky enough to get the item that you wanted at a rare occasion. Then once you have your character with the equipment, send it to some place where it can actually be helpful. Like it requires some investment of dice from the free people player. This, I mean, if these treasures were like worth nothing, nobody would play them. But I can say that of our 6 games that we played with Mark, okay, we didn't play too many of them, but I think to remember that 4 of them were won by 3 people and 2 of them from the shadow, something like that, which
Mhm.
It's not, of course, like 6 games is not a huge statistics, but let's just say, and we encourage everybody that is gonna watch to this video to play more games so that we can give even more feedback to Mark and make this expansion like a very nice jewel, more than it already is right now. But my point is that at the time when we were playtesting, I didn't feel like it was unfair for neither part. Like I felt like all the quests uh, uh, perpetrated by 3 people to get these objects was rewarded, and even in battles, yes, these items were very strong, and the shadow player sh- would think twice before attacking a stronghold with a companion inside with such objects. But it was not like game breaking. That's what I would like to say. It was like it felt
Right.
balanced, even if like the effects like they look very strong. They're not like completely destroying the balance of the game, in my opinion, and according to the games that we play so far between me and Mark. So that's a very nice touch,
Yeah.
I would say.
Well said. And I've read statistics there on the Discord server that in the top 10 players, Shadow Player was 60% win rate, which is, you're talking
Yeah.
about 50% more wins than Free People. So I do think that it was in my mind that this is specifically an expansion for base, and so I wanted to slightly favor the Free Peoples. So the aim is definitely to give them better options in some games where you just, as Free People, you just have no options, and maybe get us closer to 50-50, but obviously that's a lofty goal and
Yeah.
much playtesting required.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, so we can proceed with the 200 treasures presented in this expansion.
Yeah,
So,
Lesser Ring of Power is my favorite.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Lesser of a Ring of Power, it's very nice. So, essentially, while equipped with this character has 1 to its level to a maximum of 3, and leadership to a maximum of 2, which again, like I feel like this is balanced. Like if you give this, like you don't want to break the game. Like you're not gonna give this to like Gandalf or something like that. You're gonna, I mean,
Hmm.
for the extra leadership if you're interested to, but it's like it's a nice effect. Like Elladan Elrohir can become so valuable once they get this lesser ring of power. And also for the second effect, there is a nice interaction regarding the hunt and the fellowship. So draw the enemy's eyes. If the fellowship is not in Mordor track and is within one region of this character, the 3 people player may eliminate this character before a hunt roll to cancel that hunt roll. Which to me like feels so thematic and so balanced and so right. Like it's not like you're disrupting the balance of the game. It's simply like one um, like free move, but it costs time and resources to get there. So,
I
and
just love the idea that,
yeah,
go ahead.
no. I just wanted to mention it in one in our playtesting game. This actually happened. Like Mark actually did this, and like it was reasonable at the time. Like a reasonable choice as well.
Yeah, I just love the idea that Sauron's spies have thought they found the ring, but it was just, I don't know, Legolas going around with a ring of power, having
Yeah,
having delusions of grandeur.
yeah. And I also like the fact that all of this is like pointing to some stuff that you could potentially find in some like deep dungeon or like ancient ruin of Middle Earth. Like there are some dwarven rings that have been lost, so this lesser ring of power could something like that. The blade and mail of Gondolin, like we know, for example, that Gandalf with Bilbo when they were like in their quest to free the Lonely Mountain from smoke. They
Mhm.
stumble upon like some caves and they found their Gondolin weapons from the time. So like it's not like it could happen. It's something that is it makes totally sense thematically. So you could like if you can find the items from Gondolin, who says you cannot find the dwarven items from that time, like what we saw before. And
Right.
we also have as the final equipment card the Scrolls of Lost Lore, and these are so interesting and I love these. So when I was looking in the beginning
Mhm.
of all these treasures, I was like, damn, why is it so difficult? Because they are so vast within each other. And Scroll of Lost Lore is also a very interesting option. Why? First of all, Song of Power. If this character is in a battle and you see a combat card and you use a combat card during the first round of the battle, after doing so, you may immediately draw an event card from the deck matching the type of that card. So it's essentially like a Witch King ability,
Hmm.
base Witch King ability, but for free people defending. And this can be so useful. First of all, like I noticed that when I was using character, so I was sending companion like Elladan Elrohir or maybe Gandalf or maybe I don't know Ghibli equipped with something, equipped with this one and sending another siege, and it was attacked. Like the ability not only to have a character in a companion in the battle, which makes it more likely that you play combat card effects related to companions, which are less seen in base game. But the fact that you can do so and at the same time cycle other character card, which can also be helpful for the free people, for sorry for the fellowship, like it sounds busted, but like it felt completely balanced at the time. Also because in order to get these items, you need to separate companions, which means like you're gonna suffer more from corruptions. And you can find a balance in there, like in delaying the shadow player's military victory, and at the same time drawing potential cards that can help the fellowship on the corruption side. It felt like very, very interesting and nice to me. And also we have the
Yeah,
second
it's
effect. Ah, sorry, go on.
I'm just gonna say it's the first round of the combat, and the shadow player always has agency and all this stuff. So although it sounds busted, the shadow player obviously has a choice whether they want to attack that specific character, and it's very hard for free people, even with this extra hero die, to just move their character wherever the shadow is, and have, aha, you have to fight me. So that's why I think we found it balance is that it's pretty hard to have that character in the right place at the right time, and the shadow has to attack them, and then,
Yeah,
okay, you're cycling cards. FPMV, obviously helpful. Free People Military Victory, that would be helpful in that scenario.
yeah, it could be for sure. And we also have a second result, Forgotten Knowledge. After rolling action dice, you may reroll the hero die if it's not showing an Awakened Denizens results. You must use the second result. Very nice, but also not that busted because, as we said, like Awakened Denizen is like one third of the result of the hero dice. So maybe you will not be that inclined to reroll. Like you will only do in that, like if you really need a specific results in a life death scenario. Otherwise, you're gonna be not so tempted to use the second result. And I don't know
Yeah.
if we mentioned it before, but whenever on the hero die you roll an Awakened Denizen results, it must be automatically that result and it cannot be changed in any way to any of the other results, neither with the scrolls of the lost log. Like that's the results that stays for the round.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think we haven't done any of the shadow side yet,
yeah.
so I'm not
So
sure if we're there yet.
yeah, I mean, we're done with the treasures, and we can talk about the other aspect of the game, which is the monster, let's say, that can be encountered in the explorations of these dungeons and these ruins. So we have the characters, we have the treasures, we have the hero die, but we have the monster as well. So as we mentioned before, on the hero die, there is one phase that referenced the tennis result. What happens that when you roll that result, you flip the token on the specific ruin that is being explored, and you flip it
Mhm.
on its monster's face. First of all, any monster grants to the shadow player a modifier of -1 for any subsequent, let's say, for the time that the monster is flipped. It grants a modifier of -1 on the roll that the free people player does to explore the dungeon on that specific ruin. So that's
Mhm.
also good for the shadow. But besides that, there are so many nice new interactions that we get with this monster. And there is one of them for each pertaining region. And I'm going to let you explain them. And we start with the first one, which is the daughter of Shelob in the southern Mirkwood.
Sure, absolutely, I'll do that. I'll take it a step back. I found like this is something I could probably teach anybody who knows War of the Ring this expansion in under 5 minutes. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. That's pretty much the amount of time you spent to explain it to me. Yeah.
Right. So just to make it clear that I think in discussing this, we may be making it seem more complicated than it is, uh, probably because we're going into all these details in the wrong order, because I'm not very good at
Yeah,
presenting
and
things. But
yeah, me neither.
my just to take it a step back, when the dice is driving all these actions, so the shadow really has nothing to think about until they roll a denizen result, and that was the 2 out of 6 with the spirit symbol that we looked at before. And when they do, like Jacopo was saying, there's a token, the ruins token, which is sitting in these 6 locations that can be flipped. That is the shadow player gets to do that action as part of that die face being rolled. That being the die
Yeah,
result, the
exactly.
shadow instantly does it. So there's no like massive strategizing or need to really remember tons of rules.
You
The dice are
you can choose the monster that you want to flip. Like like
correct.
there are 6 possibilities on the map, and you can choose which one you want to flip. But that's like the only, uh, uh, let's say, active choice that the shadow player needs to do in this case.
Exactly. So I'll go to what you were asking me specifically to go through. This is the monster reference card. It is only one card that has 2 faces, which this is one face of it. There are 6, so each face has 3 of these monsters, as I call them. But what they really represent is the guardians of these ruins that the character is going to face as they attempt to delve the ruins using the delve ruins action on the dice. So we'll start with the daughter of Shelob. She's in Southern Mirkwood. So that specific runes token in Southern Mirkwood gets flipped. And when it's flipped to show her symbol, her, the art shown there, her power is active. And then it says at the end of the turn, you may flip the daughter token to put the ensnared token on a character within 2 regions that is not with a Free People army. So that's another token which is not pictured here. It's just a simple token that says that their level is set to 0, so they
Hmm.
can't move. They're basically trapped in spider webs.
Yeah.
So again, let's assume the denizen result was rolled. It immediately, during the roll action dice step, it immediately gets resolved. That's the rule for denizen results. And the shadow player decides to flip the Southern Mirkwood ruins to its daughter of Shelob face. Then this power is now in play. And so at the end of the turn, as it says, you would then, if there's a character anywhere nearby, 2 regions, you would ensnare them.
Yeah, one
And
possibility could
using,
be, for example, Gandalf the White or Gandalf the Grey. Most of the times they can appear in the Eastern Brownlands, so it's not unusual, let's say.
yeah, and it's not fatal. It just sets their level to 0, and then there's a rule for removing it. But the point being that when you use the monster's result, you flip the ruins token back to its original face, which is
The
looks
ruin
like a
fit.
ruins face.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And
so the
also,
power has been used, but it's not like it costs action dice. Like you have this token, which is kind of like a free extra action that you can take at a specific moment that is specified on the monster reference card. And once you do it, you
Mhm.
flip it again, and that's it. Like its use has been um, utilized. Like the token has been used. Like that kind of extra action of power has been used. And
Exactly. So that's how you
yeah,
track that it's been used. Would you mind scrolling to the? I took a picture of a TTS
yeah,
setup.
no problem.
I think we can see in there that there will be a there. Yeah. So there you can see next to the monster reference card. Maybe the resolution isn't great, but just to get a quick image of, you can see above the monster reference card in red there in the center, there are 2 tokens on their ruins face, and then there are 4 on their monster's face. That's just randomly done. And you can see how, and there's the ensnared token next to the card to the right of it with a 0 on it, which represents the 0 level, which means you can't move. Um, just to show visually, yeah, what this is the totality of the expansion. Like
Yeah,
there
exactly.
isn't much to it. Rules have 1 page.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are some reference
Cool.
cards, but it's like it's very handy. It's very like it's pretty much nothing. Like
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to get that one in. So
yeah, 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 no, it's good point.
It's easy to get
So
an impression of complexity where there isn't any.
yeah, no, good point. Okay, let me zoom out here a little bit. Okay, so we were talking about the daughter of Shelob, and we also have the Wights of Deadmen's Dike, which they, oh, sorry, my bad. They appear in Arnor.
Yep. So the idea is that this is the one where you would attempt to slay characters.
Mhm.
So each monster, as I call them, has a different power, and they generally a lot of them happen at the end of the turn. I did not want Shadow Player to have to use dice, so they just happen. You're not spending dice, out of your action roll to do this stuff. So yeah, so if there's a character of level 2 or lower within 2 regions, you roll a combat die straight up, and on a 5+, bye bye character.
Yeah, which can sound like extreme, but keep in mind that Elladan Elrohir, they can come back if they are the ones. Uh, they can come back one time, let's say. One.
Correct, at a lower level, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they could be the one exploring these ruins. And on the other hand, if it's any other companion, like yes, I mean there are some risks involved, like in finding nice items from the past. One of the risks is that you encounter some whites, especially if we're talking about Arno. Yeah, and
And that is
always,
art, by the way, just
yeah.
quickly from Merp. Yeah.
No, I wanted to comment on the art because I wanted to say like it looks so beautiful and also like there's such a nostalgic vibe to it.
Mm, I agree.
And you were mentioning this is the art from the card game, or
It's actually from Merp first, the Middle-earth role-playing
Mhm.
in the
Okay,
80s. Angus
yeah,
McBride is the artist. Just love that art.
very nice, very nice. Still in the Egghead region, we have the last, let's say, monsters, which are not exactly monsters, technically monsters in this case, but we have the brigands that can be found can be found in Avendin. And at the end of the turn, you may flip the brigands token to roll a combat die. On a 4+, choose a treasure card equipped to a character within 2 regions and return it to the treasure deck. Then shuffle the
Mhm.
treasure deck, which is such a nice and thematic idea, I will say. Yeah, 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 totally.
Yeah, I don't think we have it used it, right? It never
Not
happened.
yet, not yet. We have pretty much used all monsters. This one, not yet, but it could happen one day. Like, who knows?
It would be so frustrating. You go through all the effort of like
Yeah.
delving ruins, you make the roll, you get the treasure you want, and then it gets filched.
And I like that it's easier to steal the treasure with the brigands instead of like killing a character with the whites. Like, that's also feels
Right.
balanced. Of course, it's just one roll of a six-face dice, but anyway.
Yeah, and it's limited by the fact that 2 regions, which we
Yeah,
discussed a lot during testing,
yeah.
and maybe it isn't the right answer, maybe it's too much, but more playtesting
If
required.
you feel it's not the right answer, please play this game a lot on TTS and then give your feedback to Mark. He's gonna be more than happy
Yeah,
to hear your opinion about it.
right.
But
Thank you.
play this expansion a lot. Let's support these fan-made expansions and material and the authors that work behind it. And
Cool.
finally, we have these three final creatures. So we have the Watcher in the water in Holland, which feels so nice. So if you play Thing from the Deep and the Fellowship is within 1 region of Moria, you may flip the Watcher token to draw another hand tile. Apply the effects of the second hand tile, then return the first hand, tile to the hand pool, which can be like quite important, I would say, like in a base game, like Thing from the Deep, passing through Moria. Maybe it's the time instead of drawing a high, we want a one reveal or even a zero reveal. Like it doesn't matter or two. So can be quite important, I would say. Uh,
Yes, it's
yeah,
going to take a lot for all the conditions to come true, but if it does happen, it will be very important.
yeah, 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 exactly. And also keep in mind that, as already explained by Mark, like this is meant to be a light expansion. Like it was never meant to be like so impactful in the game.
Mm.
Uh, So, for example, there were games like the three people would go around to find treasures, but then they would end up in situation that they couldn't actually make it to defend any stronghold.
Yep.
And three people maybe would continue, but keep going and like still winning. But the point is that um, it's not meant to impact significantly all of your games. But I would say confidently that at least in 50% of the game, you should see some impact from this expansion, at least, if not more.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Then we have the Cold Drake in the Withered Eve, which is probably going to be the monster. Even not sure 100% about it, but in playtest we noticed was probably the monster that was most spawned of all of them. During a
Yes.
battle within one region, which can be Dale, Woodland Realm, or Erebor, you may flip the Cold Drake token instead of playing a combat card to add one to your combat rolls for one round. Again, very nice effect. I don't think it's game breaking, but you definitely want to play it, especially if it's a free
Right.
action. Yeah,
Yeah, if shadow players going military and they're just completely ignoring the entire denizens thing, they can at least get some kind of military effect.
yeah. And then finally, we have the Great Goblin in Goblin's Gate. After the action roll, you may flip the Great Goblin token to either force the free people player to reroll the hero die or to place one Sauron regular in Goblin's Gate, which is quite interesting because in the beginning of playtesting, I thought this monster was the less interesting one because it was like it's kind of like uh, it's kind of for the sake of itself. Like I couldn't see it work in a very nice way. But actually, like in the
Mm.
last game that we played, I was proven wrong because it turned out to be like quite important, especially when the action was moving south towards Gondor and Rohan. So it can be a very interesting one as well.
And how cool to see a Sauron regular in Goblin's Gate, which you never see. It
Yeah, as
impact
well.
it impacts the ruins roll, and it also can be used for as a place to use like a Shadows Gatherer or something like that,
Totally.
which you would not normally see. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
rare but possible.
Yeah, yeah. Again, small but significant impacts on the base game. Sure.
Hmm.
Very nice. So I think it could be worth also maybe talking about the 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 last addition, which is Caran-Carach. We didn't talk about it before for the Shadow.
Yes. So yeah, sticking to the theme of what the toys the Shadow player gets. There's a new character for Shadow. This is a werewolf. Those of you who may not know, there are werewolves and vampires in the first age, Silmarillion, and I've always thought that was the coolest thing. Um, Caran-Carach is actually an invented character or monster from MERP, Middle-earth role-playing, that lived in Dol Guldur and was basically Sauron's, you know, hand-fed hound. Um, I created this character to be a counter to all these as I envisioned it, these free people characters going around getting treasure and stuff. I wanted the shadow to have something to counter that. So Caran-Carach Fell Spirit at the end of the turn, which is you'll notice is a timing band for a lot of these abilities, and it doesn't cost a die, which is critical. I did not want Shadow Player to start having to use dice just to counter new things. So this is basically free at the end of the turn. If Caran-Carach is in the same region as a character, he essentially he can roll a die and kill that character. Importantly, he cannot kill level 3 characters. So the math says that he can't, and he thematically you don't want Gandalf dying to a werewolf. It
Yeah,
just doesn't make sense. Plus, it breaks the game. So the math takes that into account, and so that first ability is, as Shadow, you're trying to get this character into the same region as the companions that are going around the map. Just to be clear, I wanted this character to be cheap for the Shadow to bring in. So it's any action die to bring Caran-Carach to Dol Guldur. The reason I definitely wanted to be an action die to bring Caran-Carach in, so that it's at least a decision. But I did not want it to be a muster because that's, in my mind, too expensive. Shadow is trying to muster things in turns 1, 2, 3, and they cannot spare muster dice for this character who doesn't bring extra dice and all that. So it's any action dice. So if you've got a Palantir sitting around as Shadow turn one, you can bring Caran-Carach. And his second ability is the important one, and that is it works directly off of the hero die, which is the picture right next to the card. Um, yeah, and so if the free people uses the move hero or delve ruins results on the hero die, you get a free move of Caran-Carach. If you should, there is a secondary ability to that. If you should happen to end his movement in the same region of fellowship, you can kill the werewolf to inflict 1 point of hunt damage following the
Yeah.
normal rules. So, I didn't want to break the game, but I feel like you should always feel like the dice spent to bring Caran-Carach is at least got you something as Shadow. So, your worst case, maybe doing 1 point of hunt damage. His movement can be sporadic. We did a lot of playtesting with him, and obviously he can be moved with a normal character die result. If the Shadow's moving Elladan Elrohir, you can move Caran-Carach. His level's 3. So you have that control, but the Hound of Sauron ability is obviously the free people player is going to control whether or not they use those results. But if they do use those results, you get the immediate move of Caran-Carach. So he can fly around the board in certain circumstances.
Indeed. And of course, it's not a minion for the purposes of playing kind of the white. It needs to be specified, but
Right.
I think it was pretty intuitive as
And
well.
he's not a combat minion. He's not going to help you in combat at
Mhm.
all.
Mm-mm. That's pretty much it. That has been Treasures of Middle-earth.
Yeah, I don't
And
know
yeah,
if you show the TTS screenshot there, just above
yeah,
Treasures of
sure.
Middle-earth,
One
just
second.
just slightly higher up there.
Yep, there you go.
You can see, and you mentioned this, Jacopo, but I just want to be clear on this. So you have your basic ruins face, which is the white with the picture of a ruins face of that round token. Uh, you can flip it when you get a denizen's result. In fact, that's what you do when the denizen's result, which is that spirit result on the die, is rolled. You immediately flip one of those tokens, a shadow player's choice. I just wanted to point out that even though those tokens have powers where you flip them back to their original side and use the power as per the monster reference card, even if you're not using those powers, those tokens represent the fact that the denizens have been kind of stirred up and roused, as it were. And so there's a -1, and that picture is a little too far to tell, but there's a -1 in the corner of every
Yeah,
one of those monster faces. So you could, in fact, not flip it. You could, in fact, decide never to flip it and just leave it at its -1. And the -1 is a direct modifier on the ability to delve that ruin and
yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
treasure
Hmm.
in favor of the shadow, obviously. So the free people wants to roll high to get treasure. If they roll too low, they risk the character dying. If they roll 6+, as we showed, they get treasure.
Indeed. Very nice.
Yeah,
So if you're okay, I would end this walkthrough video by asking you a couple of questions regarding this expansion.
sure.
Um, Quickly, you talked about it like in the beginning of this video, but yeah, I mean, you already mentioned it. But like the first question would be, what did you think? Why did you think of realizing this expansion? What inspired you? I think you already mentioned it about like trying to avoid those kind of predictable base game of a side sprint versus military rush
Yeah,
and
it,
the
it's because
card
it's
games of the past or the role-playing game as well.
yeah, yeah, all that. I won't go over that again, but it specifically in base game, it's because it's so hard to separate. It's so expensive to separate companions and get them moving on the board that it's rarely worth it. It's always better to move the fellowship, right?
Yeah,
So if that's why I was like, okay, let's get an extra die in there, which is not 100% in the free people's favor, but at least there's a couple more chances that you'll get quote unquote free movement,
yeah,
which would encourage you to separate more companions and get involved with these guys flying around the board.
indeed. Also, the second question would be about how did you approach its design? We already talked a little bit about it. Most of us done during playtesting, but you had some ideas already. Would you like to point out other things about the development of this expansion?
Ah,
Or-
just want to thank you. You were really the inspiration
Yeah.
for taking it to the next level. I had a skeleton of an idea which I knew was good, but I think you really helped me, especially on the shadow side, make it more interesting for the shadow and have them not get any kind of super complicated options, but just simple things the shadow player can do to help out their cause. And while they're trying to go about the conquest of Middle Earth, they don't have to lose too much sleep about it. But there's things they can do, type of thing. So yeah,
Well,
thanks to you
you
for
you
pushing me.
definitely inspired me to inspire you because when I saw it, I was like, this is too good. I felt at the time something was lacking a little bit from the shadow side. It was like there is all this cool shit that the free people player can do, but the shadow is pretty much watching it, and there is not too much interaction on that part. So yes, maybe I gave some input for the shadow part, but other than that, like your idea, like your original idea, is the thing that inspired me to help you figure out other stuff. So like, props to you for that.
Thank you.
Um,
And I'll mention that I told you this before, but I considered the idea of the minions going after, like the shadow minions going after treasure, but it just didn't feel thematic to me. But maybe like if we get feedback, that's what the people want, then it's certainly, there's nothing stopping it. It just didn't feel quite right.
yeah, but feel free, and this leads me to the next question. Like, if somebody wanted to try this fan-made expansion, where can they download it? Where they can find more information? We're gonna put definitely some links here in the description of the video, but essentially we played it on TTS, and
Yeah, getting in the Java client is just not going to happen. You see how hard it is to get Kings of Middle Earth.
yeah,
So it's going to be TTS. And again, the picture right there shows you the entire thing. There's really not much. One page of rules. Yeah, it's just easy peasy. You just dump it into your TTS uh, as an object and just bring it into your game. It's very easy. I'll probably talk to DevKev. I've been in discussion with DevKev who does the War of the Ring mod. Shout out to him because he's done amazing work with the scripted mod. I've been getting the Wastes of the Witch King by Vanali and the Treason of Isengard by Rafamir put in
mhm,
there as an option. So it is not out of the question to get Treasures of Middle Earth included in there. Again, if there's fan support, if people are interested, um, it shouldn't be that hard. It's just really easy expansion to just throw in there. Doesn't change the decks of either player. The treasure cards are their own separate deck, and the rest is just two characters and a couple of reference cards and a few tokens. So very, very simple to bolt on to the base game.
cool. Um, Very nice. Yes. Next question will be, what other setups, expansions, official and not, do you like for War of the Ring? Do you have a favorite one?
Mm, yeah, I like them all. I just mentioned, and I've played them like maybe only once or twice each. So talking about Treason of Isengard, talking about Waste of the Witch King, they're all fun. Like it's if I had to pick a favorite, it might be Treason of Isengard, just because it's in a more complete state. I think Vanali's still working on Waste of the Witch King.
Hmm.
I believe Rafamir is kind of just ahead of the game. He was one of the first to really make a big expansion, and I think it went through more time and more playtesting. So if I had to pick, I'd probably go there. But I don't have enough plays with any of them to really
I see.
make like informed. They're just a lot of fun, and I will say again, you got me going on them by the videos you produced. It was really that inspired me. I'd seen them several times, and I was thinking I should try them, but that really got me going because some of the cards are just so cool. That just
Yeah, no, they
the
are
things the
totally.
things you can do. Yeah.
Yeah. And on the official side, is there like an expansions that you like talking about lords or warriors of kings,
Mhm. You
or
know the
also
answer to
fate of Erebor? I mean, I know it, but for the viewers.
that. Yeah, I'm a lone wolf player. I think that's the way to play. I realize it's a little bit crazy and it's kind of a lot for some people, and it makes the games longer and all that. But I like the fact that there's no defined strategy and the games can be pretty wild. Comb is pretty cool. I played all three. Like Loam Woam Comb recently with the Lego Quill. It was just an
Oh,
insane
nice.
game. Like
Hmm.
he went and allocated 4 eyes turn one as shadow,
Oh, wow.
and it wasn't a bad move. It was actually worked out. Like you'd think, oh my god, that'll set shadow back too far back, but he ended up rolling an extra eye. So I think he had 5 eyes with only 2 actions to go, but it set him up for much later. The couple of kings were already corrupted, and the Witch King came out. The chief of the Witch Ring Race came out. So it just had all kinds of knock-on effects that you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't such a bad move. In fact,
Hmm.
pretty damn good with Kings of Middle-earth. So you get these entirely new strategies that emerge, which I think is the fun, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah.
Um, okay, moving on to second to last question. Do you would you like to explore other projects or fan-made expansions related to War of the Rings, or at the moment, like you're only focused to this? Do you have
Right.
other ideas, let's say, as we say in Italian, simmering in the pot?
I do. Right now, my main interest is in what you're working on, which I don't know if it's a secret or what, but
No,
essentially heroic characters. I'm very, very curious
mm,
about that because that's super cool. So that one has my interest. I had another idea in my mind, which was for a alternate fellowship, in a truly alternate fellowship. So what happens is that Gandalf is not released in time. The Council of Rivendell happens, but Gandalf has not either is still stuck in Isengard or hasn't quite made it back to Rivendell. So that you have Elrond's forced to create an alternate fellowship, and you
hmm
have Glorfindel and
hmm
Radagast instead of Aragorn, who's out looking for Gandalf,
yeah.
and Gandalf.
Yeah, the same
So
idea
just
was
a simple,
also explored a little bit by also Christopher Branston, the author of
yeah,
Leaders with Abilities. There are many people who are thinking about that. He didn't finalize that yet.
yes.
So,
What I don't think I've seen is like I've definitely seen like you can put a Glorfindel as the guide and stuff like that, um, which is super cool. That may have sparked the idea, but I haven't seen like an actual story behind it where it's literally literally a scenario, right? So the way I had written it, and it's not complete by any means, but like essentially Aragorn is looking for Gandalf, and so you can technically free Gandalf and get him back in the game.
nice.
Um, but a lot of work required. But you are forced into it, not forced, but you have a different fellowship
Hmm.
setup when you have with different abilities. Like Radagast and Glorfindel will have different abilities. I think I had similar to the expansion that you mentioned or the fan work that you mentioned. I think my Glorfindel, yeah, makes it easier to. He's such a powerful character that Sauron has an easier time finding him. But he's also such a powerful character that he can absorb more corruption. Like he can basically kill the orcs you're sending at him or whatever. So yeah, all that stuff I'm working on.
Nice. Normally, as the last question, I give a free space to the people to talk about whatever they want to add that we didn't specify first in the videos. I don't know if you want to add anything else at
Uh,
this point.
my God, I think we covered everything. I
I
just
think we
might
covered
mention that.
everything, but
Yeah, I'll mention another alt card though, just to close it out. I have I forget what I called it. Something like along the lines of you have unexpected allies or something. It would be a card, a Free People's card, where you would muster 2 North units in Dorwinian. And this is because in MERP, the and in also in the Hobbit, they mentioned that the wines of Dorwinian come from the east, right?
Mhm.
Somebody is sending wine over to these elves. Like there's some kind of either elven or Northmen or something in that region of Dorwinian, which is otherwise totally not described by Tolkien. And I thought, how cool would that be? Just if like I going off memory, I think it was maybe 2 army units and a leader would
Mhm.
appear in Dorwinian, and it would
Yeah.
just wouldn't that change the game? Like, blink.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. It's a
Like
cool
it's
idea.
not some huge army, but what could the free people do? You know what sucks is like when the do line in base game is completely conquered. There's just nothing the free people can do. They don't have armies within 100 miles.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
you spawn some winemaker that they can change the
exactly, and it would be just like it's just like Mr. Shadow. Don't leave that dew line with like 2 units, because there's no free people mustering points anywhere on the map.
Yeah,
You could pop this card, but again, those are the kind of things I think of. Devious little mind.
very cool, very cool. Okay, I think that's it. Um, Thanks again a lot, Mark, for participating in this
Thank you.
video, for explaining your expansion. I highly encourage everybody who watches this video to go click on the links that are gonna be in the description. Go try it on TTS if you have TTS. Paint it if it's needed, like all like images, I guess they're gonna be available. Give your feedback to Mark. You can reach out to him in the comments of this video on the Discord server. I don't, I don't want to say now everybody calls Mark, like, but what I'm saying, like, try to reach out to him if you have like a constructive feedbacks to give. Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing this material with me, with everybody. I'm really looking forward for your next projects. And yeah, and I actually looking forward to play some other games with treasures because I highly enjoyed the experience.
Nice. Well, I want to thank you because you're the one doing all the work, making these videos. Thank all our content creators, really. Like, I recognize it's not easy. You have to set the time aside and kind of be a public figure and all that. And I wish everyone would smash the like button more and be supportive. Most people are, of course, but I know you guys are really part of the engine of the community, and yeah, we can all get each other fired up. Get each other motivated to do these cool stuff, cool expansions, and cool new ideas. So yeah, thank you, and thanks to all our content creators.
Thanks for the support. Thanks, Mark, again. And see you to your next video. Bye bye, everybody.
Oh, salud.